as your Savior? Learn of Him daily right here on VCY America.
VCY America is KVCX Gregory and WVIW Bridgeport. Christian Information Radio.
History was made on today's date. Stay tuned for an American Minute with Bill Federer.
The Greatest Show on Earth was a gigantic success, owned by American showman P.T. Barnum, who died this day, April 7th, 1891. His biggest draw, selling 20 million tickets, was General Tom Thumb, a man only 25 inches tall. They were received by President Lincoln and performed for Queen Victoria. The circus not being open on Sundays, Barnum let his Great Roman Hippodrome in New York be used by D.L. Moody for major evangelistic campaigns. P.T. Barnum stated, "Most persons on the whole are humbugged by believing too little than by believing too much."
This has been an American Minute with Bill Federer. For a free transcript, call American Minute at 1-888-USA-WORD.
VCY America presents Crosstalk, a nationwide call-in program discussing issues that have an effect on our families, our communities, our churches, our nation, and our world. Crosstalk, an opportunity for you to voice your concerns for biblical principles. And now live by satellite and around the world on the internet at vcyamerica.org. Here is today's Crosstalk.
And friends, thank you for joining us on Crosstalk. And just before we get to our main topic today, keep in mind that the hands on the clock are inching closer to the deadline that President Trump issued to Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz or face strikes on its bridges, strikes on its power grids, the critical infrastructure. State media from Iran has shown footage of civilians forming a human chain in front of one of their plants, and reportedly Iranian officials have called on civilians to stand and protect its energy infrastructure. Well, that deadline given is 8 p.m. Eastern Time tonight. Meanwhile, amidst the war and many threats against the United States, including that of sleeper cells, the Department of Homeland Security is still without funding. While the Republican majority is in favor of the funding, they are being stymied by the Democratic leadership in the Senate, who refuses to allow the legislation to advance. Meanwhile, every day we continue to receive press releases from the Department of Homeland Security concerning their apprehensions. You would think the nation would respond in gratitude for ridding our nation from those who have committed heinous crimes. Well, just the opposite is taking place, and the media is fanning the flames. Joining us today to discuss this and other issues pertaining to immigration, we welcome back Mark Krikorian. Mark is a nationally recognized expert on immigration issues, serving as the executive director of Center for Immigration Studies. They're an independent, nonpartisan research organization that examines and critiques the impact of immigration on the United States. He has testified many times before Congress, has published many articles on this, their website, cis.org. Mark, thank you for joining us today.
Glad to be here.
So, Mark, you see right now the tensions that are heightening with Iran, the multiple threats against our nation, and yet another record-setting shutdown taking place with the Department of Homeland Security. They're more than Border Patrol and Immigration and Customs Enforcement. I mean, we're talking the Coast Guard, FEMA, the TSA, Secret Service, Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, the Federal Law Enforcement Training Centers, and more. Your perspective, Mark, on the shutdown and these agencies that fall under DHS.
Yeah, I mean, this is a really dangerous precedent. It's bad enough that we had these earlier shutdown fights, and, shutdown in quotes because a lot of the supposedly, really essential workers had to keep working anyway. They just didn't get paid. And then when the shutdown ends, they get a lump sum paying for the time they worked. But this is different because this is not a kind of a tantrum over some policy issue. This is the purpose of this shutdown by the Democrats is to fix into law the immigration policy that the voters rejected when they defeated Kamala Harris. Mm-hmm. They want the Biden-Harris immigration approach to be fixed, to be put into law so that a future president wouldn't even be able to reverse it without Congress changing the law. This is really disturbing, and I don't think the Democrats get that the Republicans can play this game too, and, they'll have a shutdown over the EPA, you know what I mean, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this shutdown business is not the place we should be making policy, and yet the Democrats think they can reverse the results of the 2024 election by holding DHS hostage, and it's really a bad sign for the future functioning of the government.
Mark, are we missing the wake-up call that our nation received from the previous administration when we had open borders and so many criminal aliens came into our country, and President Trump had talked about, jails being empty to come in here and so forth. But are we missing this wake-up call? Have we just gone back to sleep on this issue? Is this just certain politicians, or we as a nation as a whole, are we tending this direction?
Yeah, I think there's a significant element of the left, obviously a minority of the population, but, still a not insignificant number that just doesn't believe that borders are morally defensible.
Mm-hmm.
They oppose the concept of limits on immigration. And the voters clearly rejected that because they saw under Biden and Harris what that means, the disaster at the border. The thing is, in a sense, I think Trump is a victim of his own success because he turned off that disaster at the border almost overnight. And now the border, it's not that there's no illegal aliens trying to come over from the Mexican border. It still happens. It's never going away. But it's at the lowest levels, I think, in lifetimes. I think it's the lowest level since the 19th century, if only because we know how many people are trying to get across now, whereas back then it just kind of happened and you didn't know. So that kind of makes the immediacy of the problem seem, to go away. And so for a small but relevant portion of the population, it's like, okay, well, been there, done that, we fixed that, so, now what? Now what are we going to think about?
Yeah.
And that's not the way to think about it, because it's people being victimized, killed, et cetera, by illegal alien criminals, and it's not because illegal aliens are uniquely violent or dangerous. It's because they're not supposed to be here. And people and even just one crime committed by an illegal immigrant is one crime too many because he's not supposed to be here.
Right. And again, a case in point, most recently, the tragic death of Sheridan Gorman, this 18-year-old at Loyola. And frankly, Mark, most of the country perhaps has not even heard of this because the media has not jumped on this. Oh, they'll talk about someone behind the wheel of a car that tries to hit an ICE agent, but will not tell the story of Sheridan Gorman and others like Sheridan who have lost their lives at the hands of those who are here illegally.
Yeah, this happens, and that was, that story got a lot of attention. She was a college student who was, kind of, the way they put it is sort of in the wrong place at the wrong time. But look, in Fairfax County, which is where I live, which is Northern Virginia, right outside D.C., big county, like 1 million people, there have been 4 murders this year. 3 of them were by illegal aliens.
Wow.
And in every case, it's the reason these guys were out on the street is because we have a Soros-backed district attorney, Commonwealth's attorney they call him here, who didn't deal with them earlier in their whole series of other crimes they committed. And one of them's murdered a girl, Stephanie Minter. You never heard of her name.
Right.
Another guy beat his baby daughter to death. Another guy stabbed people inside their homes. These are people who should not be in the country. And it's not even just that they shouldn't be here, it's that the local government, the local sanctuary jurisdiction, did not cooperate with ICE in getting just rid of criminals.
Right.
Forget about regular illegal aliens.
Right. Mark, there's been discussion on advancing the recent Senate version and then passing funding in a reconciliation bill. I've seen skepticism concerning this, outrage coming, from certain members of the House as well. What's your perspective? Is that something that's doable or not?
It's probably doable, but just as background, the reason the Democrats can stop this is you need 60 votes to do most things in the Senate, and the Republicans only have 53 votes, and frankly, a couple of them are kind of questionable too. Mm-hmm. What reconciliation means is that if it's something just about budget matters, they can get by with just 50 votes plus 51 votes. That's their plan now. Maybe they can do it. The question is, will there be some Republicans in the House where they also have an even smaller majority who will say, these lefty Republicans, several of whom have sponsored a new amnesty bill, and they may be saying, look, we'll vote for this if you move our amnesty bill forward. So this reconciliation approach might work, but it has potential dangers in it as well.
Mark Krikorian with us today from the Center for Immigration Studies. We were talking about Iran at the top of the program here, and this past Saturday, the State Department announced that Secretary of State Marco Rubio has terminated what was called the lawful permanent resident status of Hamida Soleimani Afshar and her daughter. Afshar is the niece of Qassam Soleimani and the now deceased leader of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, killed in 2020 U.S. airstrike. Did that move surprise you?
Well, it surprised me in the sense that we haven't really seen these kind of efforts before. But from this administration, it pleased me a lot because they're basically, Secretary Rubio has basically said, look, we're under no obligation to let enemies of America move here and become immigrants. Mm-hmm. And in this case, this is the niece and the grandniece of this terrorist murderer in Iran. And they applied for asylum, basically saying that, they were yes, they were related to this guy, but they're fleeing this terrible regime. Well, after they got asylum, one of them, I think the younger one, the daughter, went back to Iran 4 times so far. And, is on social media talking about, death to America and all the rest of it. So this really, the individual instance is kind of remarkable, but it also highlights a bigger problem that you got all these people applying for amnesty. They, finagle it with some lawyer. They get asylum rather. They get asylum, but then they go back to the country they're supposedly fearing persecution. Seems to me the instant you go back, say, to Iran, if you were someone who got asylum, your asylum disappears. Poof, like, Cinderella's carriage, and you're stuck there. Mm-hmm. Asylum is for people, the equivalent of people, escaping from Auschwitz. Mm-hmm. These people are just using asylum as a gimmick to get a green card.
Asylum should be given to those who would really have a death sentence if they went back to their home country.
Exactly.
And that is not the case, especially, you said 4 trips back there?
That's what I've read, 4 trips back to Iran after she got asylum.
Yeah. Do you see ramifications to this decision of revoking that permanent resident status?
Oh, absolutely. First of all, I fully expect, the Democratic politicians to endorse a lawsuit against it to stop them, because this is what they tried to do with that pro-Hamas crackpot at Columbia University, mm-hmm. Who has become this cause célèbre on the left, and they still haven't managed to get rid of this guy. But the fact is, this sends a message that you're not going to tolerate this anymore. It sends a message, even within the State Department, that, you shouldn't be giving people like this visas, that you're going to actually take a look at who these people are and not just sort of rubber stamp visa applications to come here. And this combines with USCIS, which is the office within DHS that deals with green cards and citizenship and all that. And they have significantly cracked down on people who should not be here, not be getting green cards. And so, this is, it's surprising only that no one else has done this before, but it's gratifying to see that we're starting to see some seriousness now.
Friends, you're listening to Crosstalk on VCY America. We're talking today with Mark Krikorian. He is the executive director of the Center for Immigration Studies, their website, cis.org. And if you want to stay informed on immigration issues, friends, that's the site to go to. And certainly sign up to get their email downloads as well and releases of stories that are coming out. They will keep you informed. Well, we'll keep you more informed after the break. This is Crosstalk.
Back to Genesis with Dr. John Morris, scientist and creation researcher with the Institute for Creation Research. Dr. Morris, when the Ice Age happened, was the Earth just covered in snow, like one big snowball?
Not at all, Chris. But there is a lot of evidence that the ice sheets, which started up in Canada, did come down into the U.S., but they didn't cover the entire globe at all. Actually, the Ice Age wasn't a time of bitter cold either. The summers were probably colder, such that the ice and snow which fell during the winter did not melt, but the winters were probably warmer on average than today. Today, if it gets really cold, it doesn't snow much because the cold air can't hold much moisture. The warmer the air, the more the moisture, the more the snow. And that's what's needed for an ice age. Just such a combination of factors would have happened right after the flood, essentially caused by the flood. By the way, that's the flood mentioned back in Genesis.
For more on the foundational principles set forth in Genesis, visit us on the web at www.icr.org.
You're listening to Crosstalk on VCY America. Our guest today, Mark Krikorian from the Center for Immigration Studies, and talking about immigration enforcement. Yes, it's continuing despite the DHS shutdown that's going on, and Congress on recess right now, coming back soon, and friends, they're going to have to deal with this issue. We just talked about the revoking of the lawful status of the Soleimani's niece and grandniece. And Mark, there was also an interesting arrest. It's perked up a lot of local interest here in our city, Milwaukee. The ICE arrest of Sarah Sarsour, the president of the Islamic Society of Milwaukee. Some were saying, well, this is a direct action against Islam, but truth be told, it's been revealed that not only has there been ties to Hamas, but it does not appear that all was revealed on immigration forums to come here.
Right. Well, that's often the basis for revoking people's visas or green cards or even citizenship, is that there was either incomplete or false information when they applied. They lied about who they were. They lied about what they did. And, there's been a really lackadaisical attitude toward that thing in previous administrations. And it's really encouraging to see that Homeland Security is taking these things seriously. If you're filling out some form to come here and you lie, it seems to me that's all I need to know. I don't care who you are. You could be Mother Teresa. If you're lying to us, goodbye, get lost, and, go try Canada or something.
Markway Mullen, new DHS secretary, today floating the idea that, he's reviewing the customs operations at major international airports, perhaps pulling that from these airports while screening international travelers. These are screenings that are being impacted by these sanctuary city policies. Might they pull international flights from going to these communities?
The government has that power, obviously, because you can't have flights going to, O'Hare Airport from a foreign country if there's no customs or immigration people there to do the inspections. But we actually just posted a piece on this today at our site, cis.org, by our in-house legal eagle, and he said it's possible, but it's pretty hard. They're in the law, and then in regulations it specifies what's required to do it. So I think this is, he's kind of sending this threat to scare these people and to say, look, we may well try to do this. Even if we lose, you're going to be tied up in, defending the ability of your airport to take flights from overseas unless you change your sanctuary policies. And, that might get some attention.
Yeah, indeed. Mark, another issue here. Last week we had the Supreme Court hearing oral arguments pertaining to birthright citizenship that some have referred to as birthright tourism. But court observers have not been so optimistic that the court's going to uphold the Trump administration on this. Your comments on this case before the U.S. Supreme Court?
Yeah, I think the president's going to lose this case, and it's not because of the merits of the issue. In other words, I don't think, I may be wrong on this, but I do not think the Supreme Court is going to say, yes, birthright citizenship, including birth tourism and kids born to illegals and all that, is in the Constitution. That's what the ACLU that's on the other side of this case wants them to say. Mm-hmm. I think they're going to say, look, the 14th Amendment, which is what this issue is about, says a bunch of things, but at the end it says Congress is the one who can pass legislation to enforce the provisions of this amendment. I think the Supreme Court's going to say, look, the president just can't do this by executive order. If Congress passes the law, then the ACLU will probably sue again, and then we'll look at the substance of the issue, whether automatic citizenship for anybody who manages to, fall across the border is valid. But in the meantime, I think they're going to punt and decide on the narrowest issue possible, which is whether the president can do this on his own. And I think from the oral arguments and what people said, I think president's not going to win this case.
Right. And so on the matter of the executive order issued, but really on the whole topic of birthright citizenship, that just really kicks the can down the road again, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, but, in a sense, that's what, this is a basic issue of who gets to be American in the future. Mm-hmm. This is something we should be deciding, all of us as a people. It's something that needs to be a topic in presidential campaign debates. It needs to be aired in congressional election campaigns, that kind of thing, so that as a people we sort of work this through rather than the court just saying, president can do this, and, then the next president will just undo it, and that's just not a sustainable approach to a basic issue like this.
Yeah. And, on this matter, I saw, Mark, Department of Homeland Security pointing out that two people that were accused of this plot to plant bombs at the MacDill Air Force Base in Florida have benefited from birthright citizenship. Their parents entered the U.S. illegally. They were denied asylum, but yet born on U.S. soil, here we go.
No, absolutely. I mean, this is the real danger of this birthright citizenship issue, especially with regard to countries that are hostile to us. Because the instance you talked about, these guys were Chinese. And, birth tourism comes from a lot of countries, Russia, Turkey, Nigeria, you name it. But the big one is China. People come here. They have their kid here, apply for the passport, go home, and the kid grows up going to Chinese communist schools, but is somehow magically an American. And there are thousands and thousands of these basically paper American citizens who have grown up as Chinese. Most of them probably are not working for Chinese intelligence. Mm-hmm. Their parents are just looking for a retirement plan, basically, so the kid could sponsor them for immigration once he grows up. But how many Chinese saboteurs or spies do you need? Obviously, we got a few of them here. Yeah. And do you think they're the only ones? I don't.
Mark, just days ago, there was a federal judge, one who was appointed by then-President Obama, but he ordered the Trump administration to restore the legal status of hundreds of thousands of migrants who entered the U.S. on a cell phone app. You've talked about that several times with us previous, but now he's saying that you must restore the legal status to these. These came under the Biden administration. This provokes all kinds of things, but does a federal judge like that even have authority over this?
Yeah, it's insane, quite frankly, and the administration's obviously appealing, but the background on that is that, as I mentioned in earlier appearances, Biden let illegal immigrants or potential illegal immigrants schedule their illegal immigration on a cell phone app and gave them parole, which in the immigration context is different from criminal justice parole, but it's supposed to be a very narrow thing to be be able to let somebody temporarily into the country, say a drug dealer who's barred by law from getting a visa because he's a drug dealer, but you need him to testify in a trial. So you give the guy parole, you drive him to the courthouse, he says his piece, you drive him back to the border and shake hands and say, see you later. Biden used this to let close to 3 million of the illegal aliens he let into the country came in that way.
Wow.
And this judge is saying, yeah, but, even though it was, he's not saying it this way, but even though this was an illegal act by Biden, the Trump administration can't reverse it. And so, I don't see how they win, the other side wins that on appeal, but it really does show how so much of our district court, like the first level of federal judges, of whom there's hundreds,
right,
are basically just not connected to the law anymore. They're just making stuff up.
Yeah. And this particular judge, I understand, has a long history of anti-Trump rulings, but it does seem that regardless of the action of the president, doesn't matter what the action is, there's a federal judge somewhere waiting in the wings to try and stop it and delay action from taking place.
Absolutely, yeah. And they're working with ACLU and other people that often probably they work with, they were colleagues in the past. This is really bad news, and the Supreme Court, really the Chief Justice, has to smack down these people, because the only alternative, and this is not practical because the Democrats will stop it, is you got to start impeaching a few of these guys. Mm-hmm. The problem is you need 2/3 of the Senate for that, and that's a hard thing to get.
Right, especially in our current makeup and
yep.
and the current division that is there. Mark, let's hit another issue, and that is dealing with this fraud. We saw the Somali fraud in Minnesota, California. Do you have any mechanism of tracking what's going on with this there at CIS?
No, there's so much of it. No,
yeah.
The answer is no. The government doesn't even, only now is trying to get a handle on
mm-hmm.
this fraud. There's in USCIS, that's the agency I mentioned, U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. They're the ones that deal with a lot of this fraud because they're the ones that, process green card applications, work permits, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a section called the Fraud Detection and National Security Directorate. Their job is fraud, but also, in the past, what they've done is focus kind of narrowly on national security threats, which are real, and you want the government to do that. But regular fraud just wasn't something they bothered with very much in the past. Or if the officers themselves said, hey, look, this is a real problem, it was like, it's not big enough, don't bother. The people higher up, instructed them. Now, though, under the current management, Joseph Edlow is the director now of USCIS, and he's a solid guy. They're like going after fraud everywhere they see it, and that's one of the reasons it's so much in the news. This fraud isn't new. Our immigration system has been just this permanent cesspool of fraud, but we're starting to hear about it now because the government is started belatedly to try to do something about it.
Right, it's just been swept under the rug before.
Yeah, it's ignored altogether. It was like, it's just a one-off, who cares, it's not worth spending the effort on this one guy. I don't know, I'm sorry, but first of all, it's not just one guy. There's always rings of people, dozens and dozens of fake marriages, all kinds of things like that, fake college diplomas, you name it. But even if it's one guy, I don't care. I want that guy out of here, and I want any American who was involved in it in jail.
Yeah. You're talking about fakeness there, and Vice President Vance just spoke out about Ilhan Omar being here. He believes illegally and was not truthful in paperwork and so forth getting into the U.S.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the issue. Actually, I'm writing something on this denaturalization issue. In other words, stripping someone of their citizenship if they're immigrants and were naturalized citizens. And the thing is, you can't take someone's citizenship away because of later actions after they became a citizen that we find, repellent. There's other things you can do. You can maybe lock them up, but you can't strip their citizenship. But if you can prove that they lied when they applied for citizenship, or green cards or whatever it is, then you can strip it from them. And in the case of Congresswoman Omar, the speculation always has been that she lied and married her brother on paper in order to get him an immigration benefit and didn't reveal that. If that's true, and they'd have to, it's a pretty high bar there to prove it's true, she could easily lose her citizenship and be deported.
Friends, you're listening to Crosstalk on VCY America. Mark Krikorian is with us today. I've got a couple more questions, but if you'd like to start getting online with your questions or brief comments dealing with this matter of immigration, so many different levels of matters going on. Our number, 800-733-9829. We'll be right back.
The Bible follows the rise and fall of kingdoms and governments, covers millennia of ancient history, and reveals God's plan for humanity through powerful accounts that still speak today. In the hardcover book, Charting the Bible Chronologically, authors Tommy Ice and Ed Heinzen team up to provide readers a panoramic view of the events recorded in Scripture, all laid out in chronological order. This book takes you from the words, "in the beginning," all the way to the New Jerusalem. With 40-plus color charts, you will see timelines of biblical history, pre-flood genealogy, Israel, overviews of major empires, the life of Christ, God's judgments, and a master fold-out chart of the entire Bible. It's a vital resource for new believers and Bible scholars alike. Charting the Bible Chronologically. Available for a donation of $30 or more to VCY. Call 1-800-729-9829.
This is Crosstalk on VCY America, though not our main topic today. It is breaking news. Washington Examiner reporting that Israel, revealing that it has blasted multiple Iranian bridges hours ahead of the president's deadline. Friends, continue to keep this matter in prayer. It's a very tenuous situation that's going on with Iran at this point. We will be discussing this fully tomorrow on Crosstalk with Shahram Hadian, who is from Iran. We're talking with Mark Krikorian today from Center for Immigration Studies. Our website, or rather, their site is CIS.org. Our phone number to Crosstalk today, 800-733-9829. 800-733-9829. Mark, also we had a situation, again, our home city, county of Milwaukee. Hannah Dugan was a judge, a county judge, found guilty of obstructing federal immigration agents, felony. She was found guilty on that, and she tried to have this jury verdict now overturned, and just within the last 24 hours denied by a federal judge. That sends a pretty clear message, doesn't it?
It should. Yes, hopefully you're going to get some of these judges that think that that immigration law just doesn't apply, think twice about this. The problem is it's only one case. I'm not confident this is going to really change the behavior of much of this resistance judiciary, but here's hoping. At least it's going in the right direction.
Yes. Friends, our number again, 800-733-9829. We have Teresa in Plover, Wisconsin calling. Hi, Teresa, you're on the air.
Hi there. I was just wondering, nowadays there's a lot of surrogacies going on with out-of-country people, and do those kids, because they're born here, get citizenship, or do they not?
Absolutely they do. We did a whole podcast on that last year with a woman from the Heritage Foundation who wrote a report, co-authored a report at the Heritage Foundation website specifically on Chinese surrogacy. And yes, absolutely, the kids are physically, come into the world in the hospital in the United States, and therefore they're all U.S. citizens, and they immediately go back to China, never have any, experience or time in the United States. They don't grow up as Americans. I mean, heck, even the kids of illegal aliens are at least growing up here. The idea that, the kids born to surrogate mothers and then basically, ordered and put on planes to go back home is just crazy. But anyway, the answer is yes. This is
Wow,
a
that
serious
is insane.
issue.
Okay, thank you very much. I love what you guys do.
Thank you for the call here today. Our number, we're talking about immigration today. Our number, 800-733-9829. That's 800-733-9829. Mark, you mentioned Fairfax County, and I understand that there is some hearings going on or something there in Fairfax about the sanctuary city aspect?
The U.S. House of Representatives has written to the district attorney. They call him Commonwealth's attorney here in Virginia.
Yeah.
This is the guy he's my prosecutor in my county. I live in Fairfax County.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not confident it's going to make any difference, but at least it focuses some attention on how absurd this is.
Sure.
And because it's in the D.C. area, this is the kind of thing that other congressmen, wherever they're from, and, staff members and all that sort of thing, it hits home in a way that something that happens, nothing personal, but in Milwaukee just doesn't resonate with policymakers in D.C. So hopefully this will get some people's attention, but, fingers crossed.
Our phone number here, 800-733-9829. We have Raymond in Somerset, Kentucky. Raymond, you're on the air.
Yes, I'd like to ask you, all these people come across the border. I've noticed here in Somerset, Kentucky, everyone that you see are driving new vehicles. How are they doing that?
Well, it's illegal aliens, assuming they're illegal, they get paid too, and they're usually not. People have this idea that illegal immigrants are paid less, they're exploited by their employers. They're generally not. The effect they have on the labor market is that they just flood the job market with people who are, willing to kind of take whatever the offered wage is, and so that way they kind of crowd Americans out of jobs, but they're still getting paid for their work, and they have the money and they're going to buy cars. It's not, and part of it also is that a significant share, our estimates show majority of households headed by immigrants, legal or illegal, are getting some form of welfare from the government. Maybe subsidized housing, it may be food stamps, that kind of thing. Medicaid, sometimes on their own, Medicaid, sometimes on their behalf, but sometimes on behalf of their U.S.-born kids. But, if you're an illegal immigrant, you're still legally obliged to take care of your own kids. And if the government's giving you money to take care of the kids, that's money in your pocket.
Yeah. Raymond, thanks for the call from Kentucky. We're going now to Lori in Michigan. Hi, Lori, you're on the air.
Hi. There's two things real quick, but I just want to mention in the military, I know people, what happened to them is they came in and they falsified some of the information, and they got booted out. Because you're not allowed to falsify paperwork even in the military, so they got kicked out of the military. So how much more important when you have people coming in from far away that we don't even know who they are. Another thing is the farmers, and some of these guys, like I know farmers, and they're desperate to keep foreign workers because they cannot find Americans that will work, and they cannot run their farms. And I'm just curious what you have to say about that. And they have some guys from Christian nations, but more so Christian. And so anyway, and they just don't know what they would ever do without them, and I kind of pity them in a way.
Okay.
And I'll get off the air and let you comment on that subject matter.
Thank you, Lori. Mark.
Yeah, farming is the only area where you can even kind of make that argument, but even then it doesn't hold up. Number one, there is an unlimited farm worker visa program. It's called the H-2A program. There's no numerical caps on it. Now, there's some red tape and stuff, no question about it, but, farmers are increasingly using that. I'm not even a big fan of that, but there is a way to not employ illegal immigrants. But the other thing is that the mass availability of cheap workers slows down the process of mechanization and automation. For instance, dairy is one place you hear this a lot. Well, there have been these self-milking machines for cows. It kind of gives them a little treat after, when they go into a little stall and it milks them automatically. They use them in Europe a lot because they don't have lots of, illegal alien farm labor. Here, what's the incentive to spend the money on that if you've got illegal immigrants doing the work? And so, this farmers complaining about this aren't lying. They're obvious, but what they're doing is they're operating in a very short-term sense. And the job of government is to set the rules for long-term prosperity. That's the problem.
Thank you for the call. Let's go to the state of Nevada. And Lucia, you're on the air. Lucia?
Hello?
Yes, you're on the air.
Oh, my name is Lucia Bozil, and I live in Las Vegas for the past 35 years. And I just get into your radio.
Yeah.
He's amazing. He's amazing for me. He keeps my Holy Spirit bright on me.
Well, great.
I listen you all day, all night.
Wonderful. Thank you, Lucia.
And it's beautiful, it's wonderful, it's everything.
Great. And did you have a question?
Everything
did you have a question?
You do on that station
Great.
make me more than what I am.
Great. Thank you so much for your call here today. Glad you're listening in Nevada. Let's go now to Janet in Ringwood, Illinois. Janet, you're on the air.
Thank you so much for your call.
Janet, turn your radio down, please. You got to listen to your phone. Janet, you're on the air.
Illinois. Janet, you're on the air.
I'm sorry?
Okay. Tell you what.
Yeah, I had to turn my radio down.
Yes, please do. Go ahead. You're on the air.
Okay. I'm calling for a comment. I used to live in southern Colorado, where there were a lot of farms, especially like with melons. And there were a tremendous amount of migrant workers that I believe came in legally, but there were a lot of Middle Eastern people coming in that my regular migrant workers wanted nothing to do with. They wouldn't let them stand by them. They wouldn't let them be by them. This was in the 70s and 80s, and there was no one that cared. And when you tried to tell the alarm, because I'm a Christian, I know the prophecies and what could happen, and I know about Islam. I knew that these people were not supposed to be here and that they were here to cause trouble. And like I said, nobody cared. And then we had sleeper cells, and then we had 9/11, and it all just came when nobody cared.
Mark, does that happen? I mean, we've heard through agencies about sleeper cells, and especially with tensions high in the Middle East right now with Iran, Hamas, Hezbollah, etc. It seems that some are numb or gone to sleep to this.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Now, have there been like mass activation of sleeper cells across the country? No, it hasn't happened yet. But do we really want to take that chance? And there have been plenty of instances of, individual guys who had relationships with people abroad and then ended up committing terrorist actions. So, I mean, that's kind of one of the main points of immigration security, not just border security, but all immigration security, is to prevent the immigration of potential saboteurs and bad guys. In fact, that's the reason that the old INS, the Immigration and Naturalization Service, was moved. It was in the Labor Department until 1940 because it was seen as a labor issue. 1940, the war was approaching. They moved it into the Justice Department because it was a security issue. It's still a security issue. That's why it's in the Department of Homeland Security, and we need to, frankly, Congress needs to take that a lot more seriously than it does.
Thank you so much for your call here today. I do appreciate it. And let's get in Holly here in Northport, Florida. Holly, you're on the air.
Hi. Thank you so much for your program and opening people's eyes to some truth. I'm a Christian, and I believe that we're not supposed to be jealous of other people. But, however, I've noticed that almost all the new businesses, big corporations, it seems like majority-wise are owned by some foreign entity. And I have nothing against legal foreigners, but I just wonder, it seems like Americans don't have the same opportunities. I've been told over and over they get special tax benefits. I know they live together. I know as soon as they come over the border that people meet them as liaisons. They help them get signed up on programs. So I just wanted to hear your thoughts on that. And I appreciate your program.
Thank you. Mark?
Yeah, well, I mean, especially under Biden, there was a lot of that. I mean, there were these nonprofit groups funded by the government, ultimately, a lot of them, who were basically kind of acting like the welcome wagon for illegal aliens coming across the border that Biden was essentially encouraging. So this is a real issue, and you see this kind of thing. Obviously, American citizens are broadly speaking, in more secure position in the country than illegal aliens. But there are ways that illegal aliens get preference. Just one quick example.
I'll tell you what, Mark, we're up against a break, so let's have that example right after the break. Holly, thank you for the call. Our number to Crosstalk, 800-733-9829. That's 800-733-9829. Back in a minute here on Crosstalk.
For the Worldview Report, I'm Brandon House. Our website is worldviewtube.com. President Trump on Resurrection Sunday put out a tweet. I didn't appreciate some of the language he used, but he did close it when talking about attacking Iran. Praise be to Allah. And many took that as mocking Islam. Tucker Carlson now has come out and condemned President Trump for doing just that, mocking Islam. But wait a minute. Tucker Carlson, does he not have a long history of mocking Christianity or allowing his guests to do so, claiming that things like the idea of the rapture or dispensationalism is somehow a heresy or made up or created, or that the covenants of God found in Genesis chapter 15 are not for today, somehow making God a liar? Tucker Carlson has no moral high ground by which to say someone should not mock someone else's faith. I think he's made a living doing that. I'm Brandon House.
This is Crosstalk on VCY America, the number 800-733-9829. Mark Krikorian is our guest. The website CIS.org, that stands for Center for Immigration Studies, CIS.org. Really a wealth of information that they have available on their website. Check out their stories. You can sign up for emails and so forth. Mark, as that break was coming upon us, you were just ready to give us an example. Go ahead, give us that illustration.
Yeah, the example I was going to give is how there are ways that illegal immigrants sometimes actually get preferential treatment. And one example is in zoning enforcement. This actually happened in suburban Maryland, outside Washington, where the rules about how many unrelated people can live in a house, to avoid a suburban neighborhood having basically flop houses in them, are simply not enforced if the people there are illegal immigrants. Mm-hmm. Because it would be they're a victim group or whatever it is, and they're it has to be treated preferentially, and so that's just one little example of ways that illegal immigrants. And another example, and this is from Virginia, is that the district attorney here in Northern Virginia wouldn't charge immigrants as strictly as you would charge Americans for the same crime because that might lead to their deportation. So they got more lenient treatment. This kind of thing happens, and it's outrageous.
We have Jerry calling from Racine, Wisconsin. Jerry, you're on the air.
Citizen, and I see a problem that happens with the Democratic Party. They create a problem, and then they all of a sudden are, we're going to fix it now. And I think what's happening here, and what Trump's best thing to do is to try to get all the illegals that came under with Biden focused on those. But what's happening with the other illegals that have been coming here for decades, I mean, I know people that their sons are like sheriffs. They're integrated. Their daughters have been marrying our sons. Our sons have been marrying their daughters. Mm-hmm. So there's got to basically say, hey, from now on, everyone's got to come in through this route, through this process. But those that are behind, so that the Republican Party doesn't lose, because these people will vote for you, and they are citizens. And it's like all those people are too, woven into our society. I mean, they go to our church, they go to our. I mean, they're not necessarily going even to our work. They could just be part of the community, and unfortunately, it's a problem that someone else created and Trump has to fix.
Okay, Jerry, we're going to have Mark comment on it. Go ahead, Mark.
this is a real problem. This is why you don't let illegal immigration continue for years and years, because people, embed themselves in our society. The problem is that if you're going to fix something, you've got to, some people are going to be inconvenienced. And I'm even open to the concept of amnestying long-term, non-threatening illegal immigrants. But you have to fix the system totally first so that you don't end up with the same situation 10 years from now. And clamping down on the Mexican border is only part one and barely even the beginning of restoring control. You need to have things like E-Verify, mandatory for all new hires so illegal immigrants don't get jobs. You need a check-in, check-out system for foreign visitors, because a huge share of illegal immigrants are people who came legally and just never left. And we don't have a decent checkout system. We don't know who's still here. So those things all have to be done. The last thing is sanctuary cities. You cannot have sanctuary cities and do an amnesty, because they're just going to protect the next batch of illegal immigrants who come in, who will then embed themselves. They will, start going to churches and marrying people, just a normal process. And then you're going to have the same discussion 5 or 10 years from now. So you've got to crack down now if there's ever going to be a possibility of having an amnesty for some people in the future.
Thank you, Jerry. Mark in Indianapolis, Indiana, you're on the air.
Hi, Mark. It's Mark. On your comment after the break, I had 2 points. One was down the street, there's a number of Mexican men that don't speak English, and they had a 20-foot-high fire. I could see it from my house. I thought maybe somebody was in a garage, and I've had that happen before. Called the police, and they came out with the fire truck, and they couldn't get to the house because there was so many cars in the front, and they put out the fire. What we should do as a people is stay American, and I know if I was even to have a campfire, somebody could call the DNR on me, and they'd put a campfire out in front of my friends because they have to. And if we as Americans follow the laws, I would think that somebody who had a 20-foot-high fire with a quarter-mile plume of black smoke would get fined. And the other thing that you could consider, you were saying that the laws don't apply because they're immigrants and they can have all these people in the house. But the other thing I wanted to ask about Scripture, there's a Jabez prayer, which it talks about enlarging our borders and make us prosperous. And I think looking at it scripturally, I know that there are borders, and that there are rules if the alien comes into the borders to follow the laws.
Tell you what, we're down to just a minute. Mark, a comment you'd like to make here?
Yeah, we've actually written a good deal on this, on sort of looking at immigration policy from a scriptural perspective. And, it's not the kind of cherry-picking 2 verses from the Bible that the open borders people usually like to do.
Yeah, thank you. And Cecilia, very quickly, out of Bear, Delaware, you're on the air.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for taking my call. My question is, I have coworkers who came from Nigeria, and they came here by lottery. If you could tell us something about that lottery.
About the lottery, we're down to about half a minute here, Mark.
Yeah, these are people who get green cards. This is legal immigration. We give 50,000 visas every year at random by lottery to pretty much anybody around the world. It's complete insanity. It's indefensible, and yet there's no way to get rid of it because there's always a constituency in Congress that is in favor of letting in more people regardless of how that happens.
Cecilia, thank you for the call. We wish we had more time, but the closing theme is playing right now. Mark Krikorian with us today. CIS.org is the website. Mark, thanks so much for keeping us all informed of what's taking place.
Thank you. Happy to do it anytime.
Great. And friends, again, check out their site. Stay informed, CIS.org. God bless you, friends. Thanks for joining us today on Crosstalk.
You've been listening to Crosstalk via satellite and the internet from VCY America. Views expressed may or may not be those of this station. For a CD of today's program, send a donation of $6 or more to VCY Tape Ministry, 3434 West Kilbourne Avenue, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53208. Or download by RSS or podcast from crosstalkamerica.com. And join us again for Crosstalk.